Hello, my beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so freaking excited for you to listen to this episode. It was a wild one. We talked about community. We talked about microdosing. We talked about building your confidence and self-worth and therapy. I mean, we dove into everything, and I'm so honored to have you listen to this and borrow the beliefs that you need to get you to the next level. Aisha Marshall has been so vulnerable on this episode, and I can't wait to hear what your takeaway is. We will leave everything in the show notes, and I want to, of course, introduce her before we dive into the episode. Aisha Marshall is a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree in marketing and advertising. She is the founder of White, a fine jewelry brand, and the host of the Butterfly SZN Podcast. I am so excited for you to just dive in. Please make sure to tag us both with some takeaways. This is a juicy one. Hello, Aisha Marshall. I am so excited to have you. Welcome to the She Did It Anyway podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, by the way. So thank you for having me.
We were just talking about how social media has made us feel like we know each other. Like literally,
Yeah.
I feel like I just know every single thing about you. And that makes me really happy that we live in a world where we can connect with so many other people from hundreds of states away, like everything. It's just the craziest thing. And I'm excited to talk about everything that you have going on. I'm excited to talk about White. I'm excited to talk about your podcast. And I would love for our listeners who maybe don't know you to learn a little bit about you outside of the bio that we're going to add. But like, who are you? What are you doing? Tell us.
So, I mean, we've established that my name is Aisha, but I will land this plane. But let me start with saying this right now in this season of life. I like to talk about like who I am intrinsically and not necessarily my accolades. Not to say we can't talk about that today, but as it pertains to introducing myself, I'm not going to do any like accolade things. Here's why. I've been doing a lot of deep therapy work lately. And I, much like people listening, much like you might see in yourself, very performance-driven, very accolade-driven, Enneagram 3 on the spectrum of Enneagram. And my worth is tied up in that. And so I'm really working on not tying like my worth to like who I am, right? So I'm a believer, I'm a wife, I'm funny, I love to laugh, I love sushi, and I'm very creative.
Oh my God. Okay, end episode now because that was amazing. And literally, I'm like, no, I don't need my notes for this. But in all seriousness, I attended an event. I had actually recorded a podcast called Defining Your Worth Outside of Your Title.
Yeah.
That's very hard for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very hard for me to do. I grew up in a super religious, foreign, like immigrant parents coming from Egypt. And the title is like all we had.
Yeah.
No, like literally all we had. Before we had anything. Like it was like who we are, and not even who we are, what we do defined us. And fast forward when I was at this like mastermind recently, they had asked me to stand up in front of a complete stranger and tell them who I was. I can't say that I'm a mom. I can't say that I'm an entrepreneur. I can't say that I'm a wife. And I didn't know how to describe myself. I didn't know how to explain like who I was or the things that I like to do or what I'm good at or, you know, what makes me this like relatable person. Like I just didn't know because sure, entrepreneurship, like you take my title away, I feel totally fine because I'm a mom, I'm a wife. Like that's who I am, you know? And so I love that you started it off this way. Is this something new for you? This transition you said?
It's probably within the last like year and a half.
Okay.
So much like you, my mom's not an immigrant. She's first generation. So for anyone that is familiar with first generation families, like you get it, right? I don't even need to explain this. Or immigrant families, no need to explain. But for those of you who may not understand, the sole purpose, not the sole purpose, but a very strong, and tell me if this doesn't resonate with you, but I feel like in immigrant families, their whole, when they come to the U.S., they just want the next generation to be better than them. And it's like by any means. And so my mom, we grew up in a very low income neighborhood, like literally drank, yes, but powdered milk, like That's how poor we were. We could not buy regular milk. We had to like mix powder and water and make milk. And my mom just wanted me to be like better than how she was, which meant that she knew for me to get out of that environment, I needed to have great grades. And so that's how I interpreted the love that she would show me, right? Like if I performed really well, I would get love from my mom. That's not to say that she wouldn't love me any other way, but for me, that's how I made sense of it.
Yeah.
That said, fast forward into entrepreneurship. It's really like much like the title wife, much like the title mom, much like the title entrepreneur or 7-figure, 8-figure, whatever you want to call it. For me, Forbes 30 under 30, like all of the things, right? They are really beautiful things to hide behind because people get so enamored in those things that they don't ask you anything deeper about yourself. Yeah. And for me, like I can run off a script and tell you about myself of all of my accolades and all of my achievements and all of the things, like, but I never have to dig into my heart to find the answer for that. And so when someone asks you a question about maybe who are you really outside of any title, you have to like dig in your heart. And that's where things are like vulnerable. And so I was like, I don't know, I call it like an evil villain of like Enneagram 3. Like you compliment me on an accolade, like my head just gets so much bigger. And like, I just turned into this like goal-driven monster, but like at any expense, at the cost of like my relationships, friendships, like life, health, all of it. And that's when I knew that like my worth is so tied into all of those things, but it's because that's how I attributed love when I was younger. So I know I'm in a season, I don't know if it'll always be this way, but I've been working on self-regulating anytime I feel like I would be in a situation of performatism and not performing, just being, right? So when you first asked me that question and you asked me, like, tell me who you are, performative old me would have been like, Forbes 30 under 30, I'm a wife, right? Like easy things. Yep. But I'm like, I told you today when we sat down, my North Star is that this is the best podcast for you. So like, it's not about me right now.
Which left me speechless because I was like, I create these podcasts, these guests, of course, like I have two goals. I want to make sure that my listener leaves feeling like I need to keep replaying this podcast. This has helped me in a way that I can't even imagine. And the other goal is to support you. Yeah. Like pour into you, like tell me how these women and the community that I've built over the years support you and like lift you up. And so when you hit me with like provide value too, I was like, wait a minute. That's not what we signed up for. Like, right. And, but I really love that. And it's so inspiring because when did you start your entrepreneurship journey?
Officially, like when I got my LLC was in 2017. Okay. But like side hustle, like I was always
side hustling.
Oh my God, are you kidding? Like I wish I feel like all entrepreneurs have some sort of like they were just doing things for like quick cash. But like I was always doing brand stuff for people just generally. And I was always doing creative stuff for people. Before I started making money, which is like agency stuff on the side, I was doing extensions in college.
Hair extensions.
But like I like back in the day, now it's popular to get like a sewn-in weave. Yeah. Like both white girls, black girls, everyone fine. Right? Yeah. But like back in like 2009 to 13, white girls did not know about like getting their weave sewn in. I remember like seeing a paparazzi.
It was clip-ins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the beads or the tape.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a paparazzi photo of Kourtney Kardashian. She had full braids on the back, and I'm like, dude, the Kardashians have always had like a sewn in weave, but like regular people just didn't know that. So I literally was like making bank in the sororities, like the white sororities, just sewing in their weaves.
You just hustling away at school.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, I was like balling. Like they were paying so much. I was like, I feel like I'm robbing these people, but their hair looks so good.
Oh my God, that is the best thing in the world. And it's funny because like I assume you didn't you didn't acknowledge that you were an entrepreneur at that point.
No, right. I was just like, I'm just trying to make a few extra bucks to have a good
money.
time.
Yeah. So it's funny just reflecting back to all of that because when I started my journey, it was 2020, like recent. Mm-hmm. And that was like the official LLC. And while you're doing that, when you are, the end goal is providing value to people, helping someone and making a shit ton of money, the burnout is real.
Oh, yeah.
It's real. And it's just, again, going back to like you reflecting on who you are and talking about like, just like who you are as a human, not just even what you do,
Right.
changes everything. And it kind of, it gives permission to people to have bigger aspirations outside of just money.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And what I found is that money follows that. And so let me be clear, I'm not doing that for money, right? Like, oh, I'm just trying to like provide value for you so I can get some sort of residual money on the back end. But it's the balance between like vulnerability and authenticity that is literally magnetic.
Yeah.
And people can feel like that, right?
And you give people permission to do the same. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why, you know, when I talk about messaging or storytelling, like it is really important for me to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like if I just share the good, like shame on me, because then people will assume that entrepreneurship is easy.
Right. And can I just say, there are very few people that I feel like can do that well. People who don't do it well, it might look like a bunch of subliminal messaging, right? Like it just doesn't feel like high vibe. It feels very like, okay, like you're going through it, we can tell, right? But there's beauty in being authentic and vulnerable and showing you the good and the bad, but like still rounding it out to where someone who's following you and doesn't know you still feels inspired by you.
Yeah. You've been saying a lot, a few times, seasons, different seasons in your life. I am a big believer that there are different seasons in your life. There are people that are in those seasons. There are wins in those seasons. There's really hurtful, painful losses in those seasons. And I love that. And you have your podcast.
Yeah, Butterfly SZN.
Butterfly SZN, where you talk about these different experiences that you've experienced and you have different guests on there. When you started your entrepreneurship journey, how I was introduced to you was your original PR company and creative company, and then I saw you on stage. I saw like a clip on you digitally, and then I saw that you had launched White, which is your fine jewelry company, and then you have your podcast.
Yes.
There have been so many seasons that I've watched you go through. Yeah. There have been so many transitions. Can you walk us through the different types of seasons that you had from when you started entrepreneurship and now?
Yeah. And so I went to law school, went and graduated from law school in 2017. And that was around the time I was already doing stuff on the side for people and just turned that into like a legitimate thing. I had the luxury of doing that in that season because my husband played football. And so like I could kind of just figure out life while he like supported us and not work at a law firm. That was a choice that I had because my husband proposed and it was like, be married your first year or like do long distance your first year while you're an attorney and he plays football. And I'm like, that just doesn't feel like a conducive first year of marriage. Right. So that season I felt not like my creative cup was not even halfway full. Like I just was so dwindled and very smart and can do all of the things, but just like was not doing anything creatively. So kind of went not all in on the agency, but was like, while he's playing, I might as well. It's not like I can practice law anyway. And the reason being is because wherever I would have my license to practice might not be where we were at. Like we've moved a bajillion times.
Have you?
Yes. Never had any roots up until 2020. Yeah. So February of 2020. Wow. So yeah, every 6 months, move. So really like went in on the agency at that point. And in that season was like, wow, like I can make a little bit of money here. I can make a little money here. Like this is how you sell something, like actually understanding like problem solution. It was definitely an evolution, if you will, that season. And as it started to pick up momentum, I feel like that next season was definitely a season of not acknowledging myself, like with a capital S. Like I was very out of body, out of self, like just go, hustle, grind, all of the things. Yeah. And it paid off, right? Like business was doing great. We were on stages.
Financially, it paid off.
Oh yeah. But I was at the compromise of like, I was always working literally 18-hour days, consistently. Like, it just was not great. And I could feel like, you mentioned this in your podcast, the intro podcast, about like, when this happens, then I'll be happy. When this happens, then I'll be happy. My husband and I would go on walks and I would say, once our project manager is fully onboarded and then I'll be like relieved. But like, it wasn't really a business thing. It was like, this is no longer a aligned thing.
Yeah.
And so it took me a really long time to realize that. And that season is what I would call, like, finally I was like, hey, like, this isn't working anymore. I'm just going to shut it down. That's what I like dubbed my cocoon season, which is just like inward introspection, undoing, very much like the entryway to my spiritual journey, in terms of self-exploration and like subconscious and understanding myself and who I am as a human being. Why do I do the things that I do? And I was in that probably for like a year or so. But I would say that at that same time, I was on stages. At that same time, got Forbes 30 under 30. At that same time, like people would call it like a butterfly season.
Was it visible that you were struggling?
People who knew me, I think for sure knew. Especially my friends were like, I have not spoken to you. I'm definitely the person that's like, if you don't hear from me, if I'm not texting you back, it's nothing personal. I'm just like juggling a lot of things.
Yeah. Like I can't right now.
Right.
I was talking about, and then we'll get back to it, like the finding the beauty in endings. I think a lot of people really struggle with ending things, even if they know that it's not working out, because they're just so scared of the next day. Like in college, we'd always say like, I don't want to break up with him because like my good morning text or my good night text, like that is like what I look forward to in the day because I just know I have someone. When you decided to end it, did you have a plan B?
Zero. I literally, everything stopped.
Were you scared? Were you like, what was it like? Like how?
I felt bad that instantly after well, it's weird. So when I made the decision, it was 4th of July night. I was with friends that I had spent 4th of July with like over the last 10 years, probably 4 times. And I was telling them about like all that I was going through and how I was feeling about the agency. And every other one of those 4th of July times that we were together, I literally was complaining about the same things. And my friends were like, do you realize like back in 2000 or whatever, like you were complaining about the same stuff? And like that was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like nothing is going to change if I don't change. Then July 5th, I was like, boom, no more. And I had so much confidence to shut it down. And then I feel like this might be like stages of grief. I had so much confidence to shut it down. I'm like, you know what? This is fine. Meaning like I was still scared, but like I had to have hard conversations with clients. I had to have hard conversations with staff. That was the hardest. But I was like, it's okay. I can do it. And then immediately after, I felt bad that I had so much relief. And then after that, I was like, just spiraled. Like I didn't ever regret, but was just like, who am I even now?
Yeah.
Because that was the shield that I would use. It was very sparkly and shiny. Like my mom could explain it back to her friends. Like, oh yeah, my daughter like owns a company. Even if she didn't understand it, she owns a company. She has 10 staff. Like, you know, she's doing really well. She's just on Forbes. Like that whole identity thing, like that was what showed me that I am very confident, but I lack a ton of self-worth.
We hide behind those titles. Like we hide behind those things. When people get laid off, it's like this shaking, shattering experience for them because they're like, well, who am I? Like, what do I do now? What do I like? Like, where, like you just start really questioning. And I think that's why people stay in situations for too long, even if they know they're suffering.
Right. It's the comfortable, uncomfortable, right? Like the devil you know is better than the one you don't.
Right. Like I've dealt with this one. I can handle this one. What would you say to someone that is like listening to this and is just like stuck? They just don't know how to like do it. They don't know how to leave. They don't know how to like pull the Band-Aid off. Like what is this? Is there a secret?
I do think that there's a secret. And I think the secret is looking for evidence. The evidence of when did I take a leap of faith before and how did it turn out for me? When was there a scenario where change sucked and how did it turn out for me? If I'm already living my worst case scenario, like worst case, I can find in a situation where someone's laid off, I can find another job somewhere else doing the same thing. Or I can just make small deposits into trusting myself more I used to have this, a notepad in my iPhone of answered prayers. So I'll put the prayer requests down first. And then if they're answered, I will like mark it as answered and then put the date. And that's what I'm saying to be done here. Because anytime I need to borrow faith, I just go to that list of all of the times that it's worked out for me. Like I'm very much a believer of like the TikTok lucky girl syndrome. I am 100%. I've always been like lucky girl syndrome vibe, but you have to borrow some belief.
Yeah.
You have to like find the evidence, look for the evidence, and continue to make deposits in this like evidence bucket, I guess, because sometimes you're going to need to borrow it again to like take a leap into something else.
To like remind you, my best friend always calls me lucky, and I always tell her like, when people think of the worst case scenarios, that always happens to me. Like, it's not even like a joke or like a mindset thing. Like, no, the worst case scenario always happens. I just seem lucky because I always get past it.
Yeah.
I always do it anyway. Like, I always get on the other side. It's actually like a joke.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's just so lucky you have this. I'm like, you guys, did you forget I was like getting pulled through the mud a few months ago?
Right.
I'm good now.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing on the other side.
Right.
And I actually just said it. It's so crazy on my stories of I am living in the blessing of something that I prayed for. But because now this has become my norm, I forget that this is what I wanted. I forget that this is what I prayed for. I forgot that like this is what I have been working for.
Right.
You just kind of feel like this is it. This is normal.
Yeah. And the scariest thing is when you're in that place, it's so easy to forget like all of the grit and the grind and the tenacity that you had when you didn't have those things. Mm-hmm. I am so guilty of that all the time. I'm like, this is so nice, but like, girl, get back to it. You cannot be sleep all day.
You're so comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Just comfy in my apartment. I was also saying last night at dinner to some girlfriends, to Jess. I was talking to Jess DeRose, and I said, do you ever miss the naiveness that you had when you first started off as being an entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't know shit. You were just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm scrappy. And like to that point of like grit.
Yeah.
And now I feel like the longer that I'm in business, the more that I second guess the things that I do, the more that I like overanalyze everything, that I need it even more perfect because now I have more eyes on me. Knowing that you pivoted and evolved from agency, I know you have the agency, but going into products.
Yeah.
Was there like imposter syndrome? Did you feel like, what the hell like, why me? Like, why, what were those thoughts? And I want to know like how you got through that. And like, cause your company is amazing now.
Thank
you have these beautiful pop-ups and the activations that you do. It's just like really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's completely different than an agency.
It's different, but it's the same. So, my agency was full service creative house. So branding, marketing, and public relations. And at my agency, we specialized in bringing products to market. So literally just general idea, no logo, no anything, no packaging, right? So launching my own product was like, I could do that in my sleep. The part though, and I didn't feel imposter syndrome. I just was like, like I've done this before. Like literally
for other people,
millions of times. Like it's fine. I can do this for myself. The part that was most vulnerable for me was that all of the designs of white are all mine. So when it comes to the value and the worth thing, right? Like as I was building white, I was really just discovering all of this like self-work stuff that this journey that I've been on. And the designs are mine. And so putting designs out there with a corresponding price point and hoping that people feel like they're worth enough to purchase, that was like a whole mind thing for me.
So you're saying you're designing the pieces.
Correct.
They're not like
wholesale. No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah. So that is where like maybe if I were to liken it to imposter syndrome, but really it was just so vulnerable for me because I'm like, I hope people like this as much as I like this. And like, I hope they like it enough to buy it. Like,
and they do
more than like fast fashion, right? Yeah. Like a quick $20 something or other.
Right.
So yeah, that was like a whole, I mean, it still is. Even when I go to pop-ups, I'm like, friends who know me are like, sell. And I'm like, I'm just like, here, like if they want it, they can buy it. So like still working on all of that. Yeah. But yeah.
It's interesting just seeing like how you already doing branding, marketing, PR, bringing products to life. You've taken that and translated that into your own product.
Yeah.
And bringing it to life through your own vision. I didn't realize that you designed the pieces, which is really, really cool. Did you realize that you had like a passion for that beforehand? Like what sparked the interest? Like, or was this something that came out of, like, what was it?
I've always loved jewelry. And my godmother's Jewish. And so I really attribute my affinity for jewelry to her, because any monumental occasion, she would gift me jewelry, like always. And for Forbes, after I got Forbes 30 under 30, I wanted, like, actually, no, my business coach was like, you need to celebrate this. Because literally 5 minutes later, I was like, what's another list that I can get on?
Yeah.
Sick. Just so.
We do that all the time.
It's sick.
Do you ever, like, I have realized that I don't take a moment to not even celebrate it, but like acknowledge. Sometimes
Are you an Enneagram 3?
I'm an 8.
Okay.
What is that? Like a challenger? I'm so bad at this stuff.
I'm the type of person that will ask you as if I'm an expert.
Yeah,
really
and you're like, I don't know. I do that. I'm like, oh, I'm an Aquarius. What are you? I'm like, I don't even know what an Aquarius is.
I have no idea what any of that means. But are you an Aquarius?
I am an Aquarius.
I know a little bit about like Aquarius. So very like strong. Yeah. Go for it. Like very fiery energy. So the like accolades make sense. Like driven and all of that stuff. But what happens when you do that is just like, it's like you're burning gas that's gonna run out. This flame, it's gonna run out, and it's just like eats at you. Yeah. You never celebrate anything. And so I wouldn't. On to the next. Whatever I got the goal was like next goal. So my business coach was like, you need to find something that's big enough for you that feels like you've celebrated it. And I was like, okay, like I think I'll just get myself a nice piece of jewelry. Like for some people it'd be like a Rolex, right? Like I feel like that's what people are like, oh, I'm gonna get a Rolex. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a watch girl or a Rolex girl, but I do love jewelry. And so I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna get like a pinky ring. Like that feels like, high class a little bit. Like not a full stunt, but like a subtle stunt. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I was looking all over for a pinky ring. Could not find anything that I felt like was like to my liking. So I pull my godmother in and I'm like, hey, Nina, can you help me? Like, I don't find anything that I like. Like, what do you think? And she's like diamonds galore.
So like chic.
Just, my gosh. Jewish woman, like literally Holocaust jewelry passed down from her family. It's sick in the best way. Anyway, she's like, why don't you just design it? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So she goes to her jeweler, just shows me like his inventory, sends me some photos of things. Like if you made 2 rings if you made like these 2 into 1 ring, that would be really cool. So we designed my pinky ring together. And from that, I was like, I love this.
I'm obsessed with this. This is so fun. Yeah.
And then that's kind of like what sparked the jewelry creation. And I was like, well, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could just like, cause I can't create CADs, like CAD drawings or whatever, renderings, but I'm a great drawer. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I can draw on a piece of paper and then somebody could just like create out of my drawing? And I was like, let me try to find that. Sure enough, found 2 manufacturers. They're like, just send in your drawings. I'm like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
When you are transitioning out of the butterfly season into this new season that you're in.
Yeah.
What would you call this season?
I like compartmentalize seasons. It's like cocoon or butterfly. And you could either be fully in one, fully cocooning, fully in a butterfly, or dual. I'm definitely dual seasons right now. Like on the surface, I think people would be like, oh, wow, like you're in a butterfly season, like shit's popping off for you. Which, yes, it is. And that's beautiful. But like the self-work that I've been doing, like with my therapist, has been a lot. So that feels kind of cocoony. I feel like I'm getting close to just kind of being in a butterfly season, but I'm definitely in transition right now in terms of I've like kind of cut a lot of things out like that were performative. So even I love high intensity workouts and I love the gym that I would go to. But it was just like getting into that whole performative piece again and like just in my own head, like am I doing this for me or am I doing this to compete with the girl that's next to me? So
yeah, always feeling like not being enough, I feel like has been a conversation that has been circling through my DMs, through the comments for this podcast of just feeling like I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough. I'm not showing up in all the things. I'm not where I want to be. when you think of your life, right? You and Cam, right?
Mhm.
Cam, is there like a end goal? What is your end goal? Do you ever think about like where you guys want to be?
I don't think we don't have an end goal for sure, but we do have like I don't know if that's an end goal, but I don't think it's an end goal because I feel like it's closer in reach than I may think. But it's like, this is so silly. Moving a few streets up, like a few streets up, like less than a mile, it's like.
So it's like there's a street in my.
Oh yeah,
so
you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just like a few streets up, a mile up, life changing. Like a mile up, generational wealth, right? Like a mile up, old money. Like I'm just like walking down the street with like a stroller or something. I have no idea. That's like that's not end goal, but like
that's what
goals for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we have an end goal per se, honestly.
What about an end goal for White?
I would love to have brick and mortar locations. And I would love I don't know if I have an end goal for White, but I do have like a closer goal is to have transition into that, like that be my full-time thing. Not that I want to work full-time, but like that to be like my main thing.
And not doing agency work anymore.
Only if I like want to. So it's not that I don't want to right now, but I would be a lot more selective with the brands that I would pull in. And it would be solely consulting, which my agency is, which is nice. And not like doing. But yeah, transition out of agency, work with a few brands that like just like light me up. And then work on White and the podcast. That would be like those are my short-term goals.
I love that. For someone that is really struggling to figure out how to tap into like their creative side, are there things that you did that helped you tap into that on your days that you weren't feeling so creative?
Yeah. And this is going to be unpopular.
I love that. We love unpopular opinions here.
If you're looking to be creative, you're not going to want this advice because it's not easy. But I honestly feel like the deeper that I go into self-work, therapy, trauma stuff, the more creative I am, the quicker ideas are for me. I feel like as if ideas float to the top, good ideas float to the top more that I can like pull from. And I trust myself enough to say I'm going to act on that. Or if I'm like, hey, I have a question about something, how can I get creative in these ways? Boom, just pops up. Yeah. Like in the next few days or in a dream or whatever. And the reason why that's not popular is because self-work is hard. Like understanding childhood traumas that may not have seemed like a trauma per se, but like you realize, well, it was that one incident that makes me devalue everything else that I do in life, right? Yeah. So the way I would describe it is like picture like a toy box. Messy chaos in a toy box. My toy box growing up was just like whatever you can throw in there. And you have a child, you know, crazy. Disaster. So your toy box is the brain. And if you take all of those toys out, well, first, when you have the toy box initially, you're trying to find a toy. It's just chaotic. It's really hard to find them, whatever. You pull all the toys out and then you organize them, put them back in, and the toy box is your brain. Then when it comes to finding a toy now that it's organized, it makes it so much more easy to find. And so that's how I feel like therapy has been for me. And there's a direct correlation, I feel like, in my creativeness and also like monetarily on the business side. Things just come to me quicker, like opportunity comes my way. And if anyone is a Joe Dispenza, energetics, or any of those things, and you know, like I'm doing some of that trauma work, I am operating at a different frequency by like healing some of those past things. Literally, like scientifically, energetically, my body's just kind of moving different. And so I start to attract different. And then like fruits of my labor start to continue to flourish, right? And so if you are feeling stuck, the easiest ways, right? I'm saying, yeah, go do therapy. And you're like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that.
Nick and podcast.
Right. And go to therapy. Bye. Here's something tangible that you can start with and then just let it all like flow from there. I am a huge believer that clutter around you is a manifestation of clutter in the mind. So your office, junk drawer, room, closet, all of that stuff. And then I am a even huger huger believer, whatever.
Love it. I'm going to do it.
That you can see a lot about yourself and where you have clutter. So for me, one of the places I had a lot of clutter, my office at the time before I shut the agency down, chaotic. Like the whole house, beautiful. My home office, disaster.
Yeah.
Obviously, where I was with work at that moment, like it made sense why my office was this way. But really, my closet was chaotic. And when I dug deeper into why, even if I cleaned it up, why do I keep doing this? Or why does it keep turning into a tornado? Like, what is it? Let me declutter. I noticed that because I grew up poor, I didn't want to get rid of any clothes.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I'll never get clothes again. Because I didn't have a lot of opportunity to get a lot of clothes growing up. And so when I realized, okay, that's a old wound that I need to work through. I'm not poor anymore. I can afford clothes, right? Like I needed to work through how I felt about all of that stuff to declutter it in my mind, but also like in real life. And so I think when you begin to declutter your space, it frees up mental capacity too. And that can allow more free flowing thoughts and creativity and stuff.
I've been saying a lot, my closet is a disaster, and it's like actually an organized disaster, but it is truly a reflection on how I feel internally and just like how I feel with getting dressed and how it's so crazy that you're saying that of like, that's the reflection to tap into. The more that I talk to more guests on the podcast, all of them have been super, 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 super successful. The conversation has always gone to mindset and internal work. And I have told this story over and over again of like, my trauma makes me. My trauma is like where I get my humor from. My trauma is where like, that's just like how witty I am. That's why I have like this thick skin. And so I remember when I first went to therapy, it was like my first experience at therapy. And my cousin's like, you should go. And I'm like, why? I don't have a problem. Like, why would I go to therapy? You know? And meanwhile, like my whole life is falling apart.
Everything is so fine.
Yeah, like,
you worry about your side.
Mind your business.
Are you projecting? Like, no, ma'am, you need therapy.
You and your best friend need therapy. And it was so cool to really just talk about the things that I was experiencing, and I was pretending like everything that I was experiencing was normal, right? Like I'm fine. And so again, now fast forward into this different season in my life, I don't have a therapist. I will get a therapist, but I was just talking to Regina about doing breath work. And every time I do breath work, it fucks me up. Like literally just like punches while I'm on this floor. And it is, for people that are listening, I just want us to give them permission to let go of that trauma so they can get to that next phase of where they want to be, not because they are like, we're waiting on validation of the next phase, but because they deserve to be there.
Right.
They deserve to be in that next season. And it's so it's like, I look back of, it would be so unfortunate if I just didn't allow myself to like evolve into that next phase because I thought my trauma and experiences defined me.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes you can have traumas where they just might feel like they're way too big, you know, to let go of. It's like we all carry these like large bags of rocks around, and you're like, you don't have to carry, you can let it go. And you're like, no, I'll keep it. And for those people, I would encourage like, find somebody to support you through that, right? Yeah. Especially even like in the spiritual work realm, like do breath work, but find someone that could help you integrate. Like microdose, find someone that can help you integrate, right? Like we live in a world where spirituality and like fun things are so, they're magnified right now, and that's beautiful. But I think the one thing that has, I feel like, at least for me, this may not be for everyone, but for me, that has propelled me is the integration. So working with somebody to help me integrate some of those spiritual things, or showing me like what is exactly coming up. I had this experience, it's like meditative experience where it was this like myself was telling myself like, you can see things in other people and think that they're your own, but they're just corners. And I was like, Okay. And then it was like, that's all they are. They're corners. Like, if you want to explore yourself more deeply, like, you can, but they're just corners. When I brought that experience to my therapist, she was like, well, think about a corner, like the corner of a room. Like, you can't put anything there. There's nothing in there, right? And if I'm absorbing or feeling like people's energies or thoughts or my own, or if I see something in someone else, I'm like, oh shit, do I have that problem too, right? Yeah. But you can like put a child in the corner, and then you can turn them around and change their perspective. They could see the whole room, right? Like, that's helped me so much in seeing things in real life that have come up that I'm like, oh, is that me? No, that's just a corner.
Yeah.
But I have someone to help me integrate some of those things and like see patterns where they're just corners, but I'm thinking that maybe they're my own. And in the past, not knowing that, corners, figuratively speaking, would have gotten in my way. I'm not qualified because I see this person might not be qualified. So I'm for sure not qualified. Corner. Like, let it go. That's a corner, right? So it's really like small deposits daily in evidence, in support for someone to help you through it if you need it, to like, you might need to carry you over the line of like, you deserve this.
You said earlier that 2020 was the first time that you guys have been settled down for a while. What did that look like in Arizona?
Yes.
What did that look like, settling down, finding a community? How did you find this community that you're in? And like, what did that journey look like?
So really, I don't think that the community was the hard part per se, because I came to college here. I live here.
You did.
Yeah. So there was actually, I'm lying to you, in my first season of entrepreneurship, when I first got into it, some of the business owners that I was around, I was like, this is just not my vibe of people. And I don't necessarily like how they move. It's just not my vibe. And I literally prayed, God, please give me entrepreneur friends that like are more like-minded, like believe in God like I do, like operate in integrity, like not like gossipy, or like, I just don't want any of that. Like, I want entrepreneur friendships that are like, feel like they're different. And literally, like, I remember praying that, and within that same year, like all of those relationships got cut off. And I met a friend of mine, Lindsay Schwartz. She just stumbled into my office. She didn't stumble. She said, hi, seen you on Instagram. Can we be friends? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, talk about an answered prayer, right? And it was from there, like, I started to meet more women that felt like more my vibe in terms of business wise. So that had nothing to do with traveling per se, but really just about like, when I first got into business, I really didn't know anyone. And as simple as it was, I just like asked for it and then looked for it. And then the rest was kind of history. I wish I had like a more...
No, that was story. Perfect. I asked because you were talking about like integrating and finding people that help you integrate.
Yeah.
And earlier talking about coaching in a different podcast we were recording, I feel like a lot of it is right now, a lot of us are in a space where we're just consuming. We're consuming content, we're consuming knowledge, we're consuming.
Right.
And finding the people that are going to help you integrate is really the game changer.
It is.
Like, you can download all the PDFs and sign up for all the free courses. It's like, you need that to hold you accountable and integrate it. What type of people do you have in your life? You said you're a therapist.
Yeah, I have a therapist that I work with. And then friends, a few select friends that I'm like super transparent about, because it is kind of hard. Like, especially in different seasons of business or like talking about things on a podcast. Like, for me, if I don't feel like I've thoroughly like closed that loop of a circle, and now it's like my test is a testimony, I don't really share it, because I'm like, I'm not out of the woods yet. I don't even know what's up and what's down. But yeah, I found a therapist, and really it was just me asking people. So like, I was really interested in microdosing. So a friend was saying that she did it, and I was like, really? Like, who'd you go through? Like, I don't really want to do something sketchy. Would love to work with like an actual facility. She's like, oh, these people. And so I looked on there, I found a therapist on there, like, and tried 2 out, loved one. And that has been like night and day, life-changing difference. Like, if I could have done this a lot sooner, I'm like, I don't even know where I would be now.
I don't even know what microdosing is.
Well, we're going to go there. So it's like mushrooms.
So it's so funny. So I I don't know anything about that. And every single thing, like, I don't even drink that much because I'm like, I just don't want to die.
So,
like,
right.
I don't want to die.
Well,
like,
here's the thing. I think that we know branding, right, is huge.
Yeah.
Marketing, huge. Public relations, huge. And I do think that there's a level of branding and public relations that have really got society to think one way about mushrooms. And this type of microdosing, there's no psychedelic in it.
Okay.
So think of it like this. Your brain is almost like a snowy hill. Like the first time snow drops, like where you would ski down, right? First time snow drops, the first person that skis down makes like a path, right? Anyone that goes behind them are more likely to kind of follow on the path because it's already carved out, just like any trail that's already there. So think about that path is kind of like how your brain works, neural pathways. Your first experience with something is that one path. If that's a toxic experience, like for me, relationships, I was in a toxic relationship before my husband. And because I had some of those first experiences, those first neural pathways, someone skiing down the slope, just fucking toxicity, right? Like next time I was going to go down the slope with my now husband, I was like, let's go. Toxic. Like, that's all I knew. That's all my brain knew.
Yeah.
And so think of microdosing or mushrooms like a clean slate of snow. Now, with the wherewithal and the support, you can create your own new pathway that is not toxic. It's healthy, supportive, all of the things.
When I was in first grade, going all the way back, I was a new student. I moved a lot growing up, like a lot. And it just resonated, just you saying, like, you guys had moved a lot. And I remember there was this boy in school in first grade. My son's in first grade now. I will like literally kill anybody that does this to my son, or if my son does this to a girl. And he was like, can you be my girlfriend? And I'm like, yeah, this is so nice. Yeah. And we sat around and I like held his hand. Yeah. And the next fucking day, some new girl came to school and he left me for her. Okay, so
trauma.
So my whole life, I tell that story because it was up until I got married. I was like, this is how my relationships are. Like, it started in first grade.
Because you have like facts and then the meaning that you assign to it. And if it's good, bad, or otherwise, like this is going to go very philosophical, but like nothing means nothing.
Nothing means nothing.
Everything means nothing.
I love it. We're never ending as well.
Everything means nothing.
Literally.
It's only whatever meaning you assign to it. And that's the meaning, right? But if that meaning is a toxic meaning, you need to undo it. And so what I love about microdosing, at least for me and my experience, I'm with a psychologist. This is all like prescribed. It's all on the up and up. Like I'm not getting this on the back alley of like whatever.
Yeah.
And there's no psychedelics in it. So I'm not like, oh my God, I'm tripping out, right?
Yeah.
I really feel like it's just made my subconscious louder. So I can like understand, I can see or hear negative self-talk louder and I can correct it. I have very crazy traumatic experiences growing up. I was in a home invasion robbery where my mom and I were both home. They like beat the shit out of us, shot up our house, and it was the wrong house. And so I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of windows at night. Like it's just and I get triggered by random occurrences that are like scary. So like 2 months ago, I had a friend pass away just randomly. I got the phone call. And then from there, I started spiraling. And I was like feeling like I'm going to die. Like that's the reaction that I get anytime I get triggered around that core thing. And so microdosing has helped me like rewire some of those things. Even like doing meditative practices and kind of like uncovering like where my really biggest first childhood wounds are and what that says about my whole life. Yeah. Like it is crazy.
It's crazy.
It is so crazy. But I feel like it's been helpful. Currently right now I'm not. Like I just kind of just was like, oh, I'll stop for now because I never felt like I needed it. I just like therapy feels like a lot already. So I'm not trying to magnify maybe we don't add anything. But it has been like honestly a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. I asked just because I've heard so many people talk about it and I'm just like, I don't even take Advil if I have a headache. Like I have to be dying second day of my period to like take anything.
Same.
And so I'm always like, I'm so intrigued by it.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, I just don't want to die. Like I
mean,
like just
these
don't.
like it's mushrooms. Like you're not gonna die,
Yeah.
right? But the like a microdose is a microdose. Like you can't. There's no feeling or sensation I have. I'm not like, ooh, I'm high.
Yeah.
Literally, I don't feel anything. Like you just go about your regular day and drive. And I'm like, I was like on our consult call. I'm like, can I drive? They're like, yeah.
Yeah, like what?
And I'm like, is something anything to happen to me? Like, and like Enneagram 3 me is like with my pen and paper. Okay, so when I'm like taking them, how do I integrate?
Wait, I have to do my Enneagram test because I just like, that is me.
Yeah.
Literally, I just like, that quote of like, I'm fine going with the flow, but like, what time are we going to go with the flow?
What time, where? And I'm like, what are some of the things that I should be mindful of? And the lady was like, so spiritual, woo woo. Like she was like probably in the forest on the call. And she's like, your body will know. And I was like, what do you mean my body will know? Like, just tell me the steps. Tell me the things. Yeah. She's like, your body will know.
How old are you?
31.
31. Oh, so same. Mm-hmm. And when's your birthday?
March 10th.
March 10th. I feel like I've been asking everybody their birthdays. It's just like all a blur right now. But I'm 31. My birthday's in February 13th. And I wish that I felt strongly about tapping into who I was and my self-worth when I was in my 20s. I give myself more grace now. Mm-hmm. I am invested in like living my best life. Like I value my energy, my space, my like so much, the people that are around me. And I go back and forth of like, I wish that is how I was when I was younger. But then on the flip side, maybe I wouldn't be how I was now if I wasn't. You know what I mean?
I thought about that when you said that. And I'm like, would that have led me to my husband? I don't know.
Right.
And then I'm like,
yeah, I would have never had my son if I was so in tune with taking care of myself. Like that wouldn't be where I was.
I'd be like, I am way too good to be, I'm kidding. But I think there's seasons, honestly. Yeah. The one thing that got me though, my late 20s, someone said, if you were to die today and go up to heaven and God's like, oh, this is what I had planned for you, would it be the life that you lived to this point? And to me, I was like, damn. And I like,
what was your answer?
No. I have so much more. In me. Right. And so I really think that like I've gotten to the success that I've gotten to. I cannot achieve any more success until I do the inner work. Like this is as far as you can go, like with like a flat tire. You got to put air in the tire now.
You got to put air in the tire. I could talk to you forever. We have rapid fire questions.
Okay. We've gone everywhere. We've gone to drugs. We've gone
This is why I do my intros after, because I'm like, I don't actually have no idea how this conversation is going to go. It's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And again, I know that this is going to inspire so many people to just look so differently on like how they define success and happiness.
Right.
Like, hell yeah that you didn't come here telling me how successful white is.
Who cares about that?
Who cares?
Literally
like, nothing
nobody.
Is nothing.
No.
What did you say earlier?
No. Nothing is nothing. Nothing means nothing. Everything is zero.
Nothing.
Everything means nothing.
Okay, happiness level 1 to 10. If it's not a 10, what would get you to a 10?
My current one right now?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a 10.
You're 10?
Yeah, I feel like a 10.
I love that for you. Describe your relationship with yourself in one word.
Continual.
What insecurities have held you back most over the years?
This is vain, but it's fine. My butt.
Oh my God. Gina literally just said, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so like, it's honestly, it goes back to like childhood trauma. My butt's bigger. Mm-hmm. And my waist is smaller. And so just feel like sometimes it's too big, and like people say things, and like I was in a pageant once, and people have always said something.
So funny.
I was in a pageant, and we had to like the pageant girls had to mingle with like the people, and there's a lot of men there. And this one guy goes to me, he goes, "Where are you from?" I was like, "Oh, LA." He was like, "Damn, that's an LA face with an Oakland booty." I was like, "Oh." So like some people would really love that and celebrate it, but like in college, in like the big auditoriums, when you're trying to get into like the auditorium seating and like scoot through, like I would knock people's Starbucks down. Like,
Aisha, I almost got my butt like injections when I was in college.
I'll give you mine.
And I was it was like a big thing in Rhode Island of like all of these girls. My husband's gonna listen to this and kill me. But like
it's fine. We're going there. Butt injections.
But like literally it was like all of these girls I knew were getting butt injections. And it was like this whole thing. And I also have a big butt. And I was like, you know what? Let me just wait it out. And thank God I waited it out because I don't need a bigger butt.
No. I just bought like 6 pairs of workout clothes.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, I looked at all the images to see if it had like that shrink butt thing, you know, where it like goes up your butt crack. I'm like, I don't need that extra like, I don't need the extra up. I already have enough.
Yeah.
I don't need it to go up my crack to show you what's really there. Every single pair.
Have it.
Every single pair.
Yeah. It's either that or they have like the dark line underneath or the light line underneath to like really emphasize.
And my husband knows that I'm like so self-conscious and he's like, okay, wow. I'm just like, bro. And you're supposed to like pull it up your crack. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't because I'm like, I'm not trying. I'm just going to wear a sweater on my butt.
No, mine is so far.
No, you have to pull it up.
Yeah.
If not, you see the line. And so I went to brunch yesterday and my friend was like, you have to pull your pants up your crack. I'm like, I don't want to. She's like, that fucking line looks nasty. Pull it up.
It is so funny. Oh, wow. I did not anticipate that insecurity.
Yeah. So like, I can probably wear more dresses. So I've been trying to, but like, That's a whole thing.
Your fashion is 10 out of 10. Every time I see you on stage, like everything, the way you present yourself, it's
thank you.
Amazing. What is something you miss from the start of entrepreneurship journey that you'll never get back?
Honestly, it's that like naivety that we talked about. I think that when you're a newly entrepreneur, you're just like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and you can do all of the things and whatever, you'll figure it out. But then like when you're a little bit more seasoned in entrepreneurship, you're like, okay, I know that like there's probably something big on the other side and it's probably going to correlate to like who I feel like I am as a person. And that takes you into like a deeper journey of like, fuck, it's not just about business. Like, so yeah, I think that, I would jump into the water like more quickly. Now I feel like, like how much of a journey am I trying to go on? So
I love it. How can people find you, work with you, support you?
Honestly, everything you can find is from my personal Instagram page, AISHA on Instagram.
I love it. We end every episode with you filling in this blank of this sentence. So the podcast is all about doing it anyway, despite all of the things. And so I would love for you to say through, and then you're going to fill in the blank. I did it anyway.
Here's where I'm landing on it. Like, I feel like there's so many things that like one word doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, I did it anyway. And like through it all, I guess.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that.
Yeah, we workshopped that one. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. This has been fun. Amazing. I love where the conversation went, and I'm so inspired by you, and I'm so inspired by you being so driven and focused and successful and also so grounded and like knowing that comes first. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate you having me here. This was fun.
This was awesome.
And don't forget, no matter what, she did it anyway.
You did it, Mom.